Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Teams Canada Tech Thursdays. My name is Wheil Elnuweisri. I am a sales engineer with WatchGuard Canada, and today we're going to be talking about AuthPoint multi-factor authentication. In our agenda today, we're going to talk about what is actually multi-factor authentication and why to choose AuthPoint, what are the components of the solution, some of the features and use cases. And also, we're going to share with you some of the AuthPoint resources that we're going to help you to install, deploy, troubleshoot, and try it for yourself. And we're going to take a look here at how you're going to start a trial, do the configuration, managing the components, and monitoring the AuthPoint components. All right, let's get started here. So when we talk about remote access, it's one of the most critical and essential components of network configuration nowadays. So any remote access or VPN application, it must have multi-factor authentication so that you can protect your network from unauthorized access. The idea is that a lot of people say that, oh, we have SSL VPN, we have IPsec VPN, and we have, username and password in it. That's great, but having the best SSL VPN client or firewall, it won't protect you by itself from the type of attacks. That mainly it could include only one of the following scenario: that a user with a bad password that is not following the rules, or he is writing his username and password in stickers and sharing them with others. Maybe a user that already been infected with a keylogger or Trojan on their computer that shares that information with the hackers, and a user that's sharing the password or one-time password with other colleagues or other employees. So what is multi-factor authentication? It's the use of two or more authentication factors from the following list. Something that you know, such as a password or a PIN number. Something that you have, such as your token, your mobile phone, a hardware token. Something that you are, which is going to be your fingerprint or face detection, and so on. So the idea here that when we talk about what are the AuthPoint factors that's being used, definitely is the password. And this password can be in different locations, can be on your firewall, it can be on your Radius server, LDAP, Active Directory. The approval on the mobile authenticator, so this is another factor that is available. The DNA of the phone, which is an extra security measure that's being taken, and I'm going to talk about it in more details, and the fingerprint to access. So within this is available with some phones. If it's your phone that is going to support fingerprint or face detection, such as an iPhone, then that's available, or the user of the token as a hardware token. The second question that we have is, why AuthPoint? First of all, that it is a cloud-based solution. So other than the gateway agent, which is we're going to talk about the components in a minute, other than gateway agent, you don't need to install anything within your environment or your client's environment. So everything is in the cloud, everything is easy to be managed. Second thing is that it's enterprise-grade security that scales as you do, even though that it's built for small, medium businesses, but also it can support larger enterprise with thousands of users. And once that you get in touch of how to do the configuration on a smaller environment, it's going to be much easier for you to scale that environment as you need. It's easy to deploy, easy to manage, and we're going to take a look at that whenever that we are doing the overview of the steps. Simple for end users. So for the end users, they're going to receive an email with the authenticator. They download it in their phone, and then they just going to push, approve or deny whenever that's needed, or use the QR reader in case if there is no internet connection. So it's simplified for the end users. It's a flexible options for authentication, so you have an option of using your phone as the authenticator or the hardware token, or if you want, you can use both. So it's depending on the end user needs. Also, we have very strong ecosystem team that always strive to provide you with the latest integration with most of the well-known products that is available in the market whenever that we are talking about cloud-based application or some other applications that it's required. So in summary, why AuthPoint? Because it's gonna provide you the best security, the simplicity of the deployment, installation, monitoring, and management with an affordable price for you as a partner and also for the end user. Okay, so now we are moving to AuthPoint components. As you can see in the middle here is WatchGuard Cloud. This is where AuthPoint is hosted. This is where all the management, authentication, logging, and reporting is going to happen. In case that you have an environment with Active Directory or LDAP, synchronization required, then you're going to download the AuthPoint Gateway Agent. That it has AD, LDAP synchronization, Radius server, which is going to be used with SSL VPN authentication. Also, we have the support for ADFS in case that is available for you from Microsoft environment and RDWeb. The other component that we talked about earlier is the token. So we have the hardware token, we have the software token, which is in the phone. We have multiple authentication options, which is one-time password using push or QR code, and we have it online and offline. So if you are offline, either you can use QR code to authenticate. The other components that we have is what you are trying to protect in here. So the first thing is the cloud applications and environment. That some of these applications that's the cloud like Salesforce or Office 365 or AWS services. We also have the enterprise environment, which is we are talking about the endpoints, the servers, the login into these endpoints and servers. And we support here Windows machines, Mac machines, Linux machines, and also it can be used for protection in RDP environment. As well as using the different type of VPNs for mobile users. One of the things that we released lately is our own hardware token. So this is a WatchGuard hardware token that's ready to use with one-step activation process. It means that we don't need a seed file; it's already there. 3 years warranty, 7+ year life expectancy. It is a water resistant hardware token and it's automatically provisioned through WatchGuard Cloud. In case if you want to use a third-party hardware token, that option is available. There are specific requirements that this third-party hardware token has to meet, but this is an option that's available for you as well. Great, so let's take a look here now at AuthPoint feature and some of the use cases. One of the things that I just want to share with you here is how the one-time password are generated in our environment. As you can see in here that we have the internal unique key, the internal clock are the two components that it's going to go into our encryption and hash algorithm. And this is going to provide us with the one-time password. So the one-time password is not random, it is unpredictable password. How it's going to validate it, we have the back end makes the same calculation that the authenticator is making on your phone. We also have an added security for this mobile phone DNA. And what we're talking about in here, that the mobile DNA or the phone DNA is also a part of the algorithm that runs on the authenticator in your phone. So during the activation, it will create a phone DNA. So we are trying to protect you against any cloning of your phone. So if the app is cloned or the phone is cloned with the app, it's not going to help the hacker or the attacker in any way because it's going to have a completely different results from the authenticator that you have in your phone, and we will know about it. So this is one of the added security feature that we have. Some of the common use cases Mainly, we are talking about protecting the servers and endpoints, which is Windows 10, Linux, Mac operating system, single sign-on to cloud applications, the remote access. And since this solution is cloud-based and it can be independent from our firewall, it can be used with other firewalls, VPN clients. Also, it has integration with CyberArk, Beyond Trust, in case this is needed. And definitely, it's one of the most important points is provide you with the compliance. So if you have a PCI compliance or HIPAA compliance, this is one of the requirement nowadays that you have a multi-factor authentication to protect your VPN connections as well as cloud-based applications. Okay, next here I'm going to talk about one of these most use cases, which is using cloud-based application and how we can protect them, and the integration with single sign-on. So one of the things that you need to remember here, that mainly the solution is a multi-factor authentication, that it has single sign-on support. And we're going to go through the steps in a moment on what you have to do when it comes to the planning, the deployment, and monitoring of the solution itself. But if we are talking about secure single sign-on to cloud-based application, we are talking about what is in it for the user. So from the user point of view, they don't need to memorize credentials for every single account for these applications. They just need to remember the username and password and a push that is going to come to their phone and they will approve it or deny it. What about the admins? Which is going to be you as a partner or the end user admins. That there is no more users calling about password reset for all these cloud applications. You're going to do the configuration, the background, and all the single sign-on will take care of this process. So if we decided to go with this feature as the first feature that we want to configure and protect using MFA, how are we going to do it? Step one is that you need to check for your viable cloud applications. And here I just wanted to share with you that we are using SAML. And SAML is Security Assertion Markup Language. It's a protocol that is going to establish the trust relationship between the application and the identity provider. And in this scenario, we have two components, which is the identity provider and the service provider. The identity provider, it's going to be us, which is AuthPoint from WatchGuard. And the service provider, it's the services that you are trying to do the single sign-on with, which is going to be Salesforce, Office 365, GoToMeeting, and so on. Second step here, after found out exactly what are the applications and if they're supporting SAML or not, then we're going to continue here about the user provisioning. We have to think about that. Are we going to use 1Password? Are they only in the cloud? Are we going to synchronize with Active Directory? Where is the Active Directory? What about the deployment? Is it going to be by group or all at once? And please remember, when it comes to this point, you have also to check about the capability of the solution or the application you are trying to protect with MFA, if it is capable of doing group. So portion of your network or just for testing. Some of these applications, like such as Office 365, it's either all in or nothing when it comes to multi-factor authentication. So unless that you have ABFS, so that's another scenario. The next thing that is you need to think about is about the activation campaign. So you have to have an education for the end users, why you are using this, that you need to protect them, that you are trying to provide something that it is easy for them when it comes to the authentication. Also, you need to determine a period for the users to get their token activated. You also need to think about the cloud integration, so determine the schedule for the product integration. As an example here, let's say that, okay, we're going to start with Salesforce, then go to Meeting, then Dropbox, Office 365, and so on. The third step is to start. that's the time that you do the deployment. So we're going to deploy the MFA solution. We're going to start with identity provider portal, do the configuration in the cloud, create the eventual security rules, the groups, the users that belongs to these group, and we have the policy applied to them that they're going to authenticate with the identity provider and do the link with these application in the cloud. The next step is to monitor the activation and adoption from the end users. Check the activation rate, is there any feedback from the end users, and review the process and see if there is anything wrong with it, or maybe there is some feedback that can be useful for you to improve the speed of adoption from the end user. And as in any other project, we are talking about adjusting the plan. So some of the possible changes about the deployment schedule, maybe the education campaign itself, the need for hardware tokens. Maybe you started with a client that they are using phones, but for some regulations that they wanted to use hardware token, then you can add that as you need it. And then it's a continuous process. So you can add more cloud applications. You can add a protection for remote access and VPN and protect the laptops and servers. Great. So now we at least have an idea on where to start and how to start with MFA. In the next slide, we're going to talk about one of the first examples of the flow of this process. So what are the components and how they're going to talk to each other? The first example that we have here, that it is AuthPoint, it is SAML authentication for AuthPoint user, and it is an identity provider initiated. This is one of the things that I didn't talk about earlier, but you have also the ability that it can be service provider initiated. You can, for example, go to Salesforce website and use your multi-factor authentication from there. Or to make it easier, in case if you have multiple applications, is to host everything under the identity provider, and you do that configuration, and whenever that the user is going to log in, all of the communication is going to happen between the identity provider and the end user. So in this example, we have a user that want to log in to his identity provider portal with all these applications. As you can see in here, the authentication is going to start by logging into the identity provider portal. So, and in this scenario, we have the username and password. And for this user, he's not part of Active Directory, so most probably that's being created in the cloud under AuthPoint. The request is sent to the cloud. AuthPoint, it's going to validate the username and password that is being sent. And then a push notification is going to be sent to the phone. In there, the user is going to approve or deny. And since he's requesting this in this scenario, he's going to approve it. And this response is going to go back to AuthPoint. It will authorize the user to access his identity provider portal with whatever application that the administrator provided for him. Great. Now let's take a more detailed, sophisticated kind of example. And in this example, we are talking about an end user that is trying to establish an SSL VPN connection. And it's protected using AuthPoint multi-factor authentication. So definitely here, there are some of the components that we assume that is already being configured and installed ahead of time, such as you can see here, we have the configuration that is done in the cloud, the configuration of the AuthPoint agent, gateway agent that is installed on premises because this user is part of the LDAP database, which is behind the firewall. So let's get started here with the steps. We have a user, he has his laptop, SSL VPN client, and he's gonna plug in his username password that they are part of his Active Directory login. This VPN access request is gonna be sent to the firewall. So the firewall here is gonna communicate as a client with the gateway agent that is acting as a Radius server and this request is going to be sent to the gateway agent, which is the AuthPoint gateway agent. The next step that it's going to happen, that this authentication request is going to be sent to AuthPoint in the cloud. Hey, now we have a user. This user is trying to log in. There's this username and password, and it's part of the Active Directory. So the request for LDAP authorization for the user password is going to be sent back in this scenario. And the AuthPoint agent is going to act here as a proxy to send that request to the LDAP database. So is this correct? Validate the username and password. The response is going to go back to the agent. It will be sent as a response. The user password is being validated. So please remember that anything that is communicating outside of the network, or not behind the firewall, going to the AuthPoint agent, between the AuthPoint agent and AuthPoint in the cloud, it's going to be HTTPS. So it is protected, it is encrypted. Okay. Now, once this user password is being validated and the response is sent to the AuthPoint in the cloud, the next step is to push the notification to the end user. The end user is going to approve. Authentication approval is sent to the gateway. And the next step, that the radius will set the accept to the firebox. And then the VPN access is authorized. So this is the whole process when it comes from the beginning to the end when it comes to the SSL VPN. Some of the tips here that I just wanted to share with you. First of all, the radius is going to be used between the gateway agent, which is the radius server, and the client, which is going to be the firewall. I just want to bring this one up because a lot of people, they have this misunderstanding that when we say, oh, we need to use radius, they think that they're going to go and install like an MPS server on their internal server, which is not the case. It's not required because the AuthPoint gateway is actually using radius as a protocol, and it is the server. And the client is your firebox, and always you're going to do the configuration using the internal trust IP address of that firewall. The second tip, that here, when you install the gateway agent on this internal server or device, make sure that you don't have any other server such as NPS, because it's going to be conflict on the port 1812. You can actually change this gateway agent to use any other port other than 1812. Last thing is just to see the logs of this gateway agent. Then you have to log into that machine, and you have to go to Program Data, WatchGuard, AuthPoint logs. Great. Now, what are the resources that is available for us? The first resource, and this is always, I bookmark this specific website or page, it is the AuthPoint help. And in there, you can see information about what's AuthPoint as a multi-factor authentication, the quick start, which is going to take you through the identity provider portal and downloading the authenticator, so quickly you can see how it works, how to configure MFA, the user management, how to configure the authentication point or AuthPoint mobile app, and also the very important is the integration guides. So if you wonder, okay, is this a specific application in the cloud supported or not, and if we have integration guide for it, then you have to go to this link. Now, please note, if you have any application that is supporting SAML and you don't have an integration guide for it, you can reach out to us and we will help you in the process, and we will see if we can get the documentation for that specific process. The second resource that's available for you is the Learning Portal as a partner. That once that you log in, you go under multi-factor authentication, you have MFA Essential, which is a series of videos that you can watch. You can download the PDF and read it, and you have some additional MFA training is available for you as well. Last one that is available for you, and also it's public facing, which is video tutorials for WatchGuard, where if you go under multi-factor authentication, you can know more about the API and how to use the WatchGuard public API that it is available. This is one of the features that it's available for you to go into more details for. Great. Now the next step is to have a demo. We're gonna have an overview of how to start the trial, how to configure, manage, and monitor AuthPoint. Okay, so what we're gonna do now that we're gonna have two examples where we're gonna go do the steps from scratch, and then we're gonna go through some of the features in an example that I created ahead of time. So the first step that we need to do, definitely to be already into the WatchGuard account. And I'm going to go under My WatchGuard, and I'm going to go under Manage Products. And in there, I'm going to create a license, which is a trial license for AuthPoint for this new company. So we have free 60-day trial. Once I click on that, it's a new license. We're going to click on Next. The license name. So we're going to have Low Pioneer. This is the name of the company. This is the license name that we're going to assign to it, and I'll show you later on in WatchGuard Cloud how you can assign it to that subscriber once that is being created. I'm going to take a few seconds here so for this license to be added. And once that is added, we can actually go to WatchGuard Cloud. And I'm going to go here to, this is the service provider view, where I'm going to add another subscriber. So I'm going to click on Add Subscriber, the account name, well, Pioneer, the contact name, Alex Smith, and we have the email address for Alex. He's using watchguardca@mail.com. You can put the phone number for sure. You can put the company address in here, but for now we're gonna click Save and Done. Now, if we see under subscribers, we have Low Pioneer that is being created. The next step, these are steps actually that I discussed before in previous presentations and sessions that I've done, but we can do it one more time here, where we're gonna go at the top, we're gonna go under licenses, and you notice that Low Pioneer here we have the trial. You can click on that, and I'm gonna assign it to the subscriber. Great. Now if I go back to subscriber, and I'm gonna click here, Low Pioneer. Okay, you notice now that I have a 250 AuthPoint licenses available. I have 60 days to try that. Great. So let's get started here by creating the identity provider portal. We create the user, we send the email to the user, and test that. So if I go here under configure AuthPoint, just a quick overview of what we have here on the left. The first thing here is just the summary, so it shows you the number of users, the groups, if there's groups that's been created, there is no resources currently, and there is no configuration that's related to any external identities yet. So the logical process here is that we're going to have groups that's being created. We have users that belongs to these group. We have resources, which is mainly the method to authenticate, or the resources that we want to authenticate to. So such as identity provider portal, or using of the SSL VPN with MFA, and so on. And then we're going to have the external identities, which is related to Active Directory or LDAP in case that we have that. Then we have the gateway, which is mainly the gateway agent that is going to do the synchronization, has to be installed within your network. Tokens is related to the hardware tokens, and here where you can download the logon apps, the gateway agent, and the other components that it need to be downloaded. Right, so the first step here that I'm going to do is go to groups. I'm going to add a group here. I'm going to call this group that it is no AD group. Okay. For now, I don't have any access policies because I'm going to create the resources first. Okay. And then I have a user. I'm going to add the user here. First name is Alex Smith. This is a user that is just going to be created in the cloud. Alex Smith. And we're going to have the email that we want to send the emails to, which is going to be WatchGuard, ca@mail.com for this example. And the group that he belongs to is the no AD group. I'm going to save that. So now I have Alex Smith is a user that's being created in the cloud. You notice there is no tokens yet because this specific user didn't open his email yet and do the activation. Great. So the following thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and check for the email. In the inbox, you will notice that Alex already received an email to set his password in the cloud. So we're going to click on that. I'm going to create my password. Right. AuthPoint as a password. I'm going to save that. So now we have a user, and actually he has a password in there. Great. Now, if I go back here, and I'm going to go back to my WatchGuard cloud, you notice that Alex Smith is there, but the token is pending because I have the password, but I didn't open the email yet. So let's check for the email here. Now, the second email that I'm going to receive is the email related to the activation. Usually these emails, you're going to receive them on your phone and going to open it in there, and you can do the activation on the phone itself. So how the email is going to look like. You notice here that it will give you the option to download the AuthPoint Authenticator app from Google Play or App Store, and then to activate your application. So as I said, if you open this one on your phone, you just download Authenticator, click Activate, you're good to go. Now, just because in this example, I have one phone, I already have the Authenticator installed, and I'm going to show you there is another way that I can activate this token is by using the QR code. So I'm going to go here to my Authenticator. I'm going to click on the QR code. I read the QR code, and you will notice here now that I have the new tokens being added. One of the things that I can do is, keep the name. I can edit the name. This is for Alex Smith. I can also add a photo here to represent this specific token. For now, I'm just going to add the name. I'm going to save that. And you notice that I have now the token and it's up and running. As you can notice in this example, I have my own authenticator that have multiple tokens for different reasons, for different logins, and also I can have third-party tokens to be used within that authenticator. Okay, the next step here, if I go back to WatchGuard Cloud, you notice now the token is in green. I have the token name in there, right? And any case, if you have issues that you didn't receive the activation key, then you can actually resend it from here. You can also resend set password email to the user, and here also you can block the user in case if you forgot the token. So in case that you showed up with the laptop, no phone, and you want the administrator to help you by giving you a specific token that it is for a period of time, then you can click on that. You can add new token. This is in case if the user by mistake deleted the token that they had, then you can click here and add new token. It will send them another email and they can download the token in there. You can assign hardware token if you already purchased them. And this specific option here, which comes to user verification, it is actually sending a push to the user to verify for specific reasons. Let's say that for a specific process, you wanted to verify if that end user asked for a specific request over the phone. So you can send the verification, tell them, okay, just to make sure that it's you, that you're talking to me, I'm gonna send a push here to you on your authenticator, and please approve it, and then we can move on with this process. Great, so we have now the user and is up and running. Now the next step that we need to do is to go back to the resources. We're gonna create the resources for Identity Provider Portal. Click here on add resource. I'm gonna give it a name, so it's Pioneer Identity Provider Portal. Okay, and the alias is what's gonna show up after AuthPoint.WatchGuard.com. So I'm gonna type Pioneer. I'm gonna save that. Great. So now we have the Identity Provider portal as a resource is being created. The next step that we need to do is to go back to that group that this specific user, which is Alex Smith, belongs to, and add an access policy to allow them the usage of the Identity Provider portal. And then you have require password authentication, yes. And we have the option of one-time password that's going to show up, a push, and a QR code. And I'm going to click on add and save. Great. Now to test this, we will go here. I'm going to go here to AuthPoint.WatchGuard.com and low Pioneer is the alias that we created, and now it's gonna show up here with the login. So we have the username Alex Smith. Okay, I'm gonna click on next. It's gonna ask me what's the password. It's the password that we set earlier. And now once that I click on send push, that is gonna go to my phone. Alex Smith, that you are trying to log into the Identity Provider portal. Is that you? Yes, approve. And that's gonna log me into my Identity Provider portal. Currently, there's no applications in there, and I will show you in the example that I created how you can add these resources such as Office 365 and other SAML applications. Now let's say that the end user decided that okay, he has a PC that he wanted to be protected using multi-factor authentication. So how can we do that? The steps, we have to go back. We need to create a resource, and the resource at this time is going to be the login app. Okay, I'm going to click on add resource, and I'm going to say this is the no AD log on app. All right. You have the option here for the access for non-AuthPoint user. So let's say that you have mix in that specific environment, and for some of them you want them to use multi-factor authentication, some others not. Then you can allow a specific user to log in without multi-factor authentication here as an exception. Okay. We're going to click save here. You notice that this is grayed out. This is one of the components that it's needed in this process when it comes to the login app. For the login app to work, you have to have the resource that is part of that group and the access policy. You need your download for the login app itself and the configuration file. Okay, I'm going to click on save here. Currently, we have a resource, but it is not assigned to any group. I'm going to go to this group now. I'm going to go under add policy, and the new one is going to be the login app. I'm going to click on one-time password, push, and QR code. These are options, so if you want at least, you can maybe do push and QR code. QR code is essential when it comes to your login app, because if you don't have internet connection, then you can use the QR code with a local password to log into your laptop. We're going to click on add. All right, so we have the resource as part of the group policy now here. I'm going to go and download the components. So the components, the first thing, if I go back here to the resources, and I'm going to go to the login app, notice that we have a configuration file. I'm going to download this. Yes, I want to keep it. I'm going to keep that one here. And the second thing that we need to do is to go under downloads. And I want to download the login app for Windows. So as you can see that for requirements, it has to be at least Windows 8, 10. We can also install it in the servers, 2012, 16, and 19. It doesn't work with Windows 7. Okay, I'm gonna here download the installer, and you notice also there is a place to download the configuration from here if you don't want to go and click on the resources. I'm gonna download the installer. It's an MSI format, so if it's an MSI format, then you can do the configuration using GPO to send it with the configuration file to all the users that's part of that Active Directory. Okay, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go back to, I'll minimize this. I'm going to go now to this PC. So this is the end user PC. I'm going to copy both of these files. So once these two files be copied, and they have to be in the same location, we're going to click here on the AuthPoint agent, and we're going to click next. Yes, we want to install it. Please remember here, whenever that you're installing this for a user that is on a local machine, that the username has to match the username that you have within the environment in the cloud. Click finish. It's going to require from you here to restart. Yes, we want to restart. Great. Now, once this is restarted, we're going to log in here with the password. All right. You notice now that it will give you the WatchGuard AuthPoint app that is going to be requesting here that you can send a push. You can use the QR code, you can use one-time password, you can click on forgot token in case that you showed up to work with your laptop and no phone and you have an access code from your administrator. So if I click here on send push, it will show up on my phone, and you notice now that it's coming from Windows 10. I'm going to approve that, and now I can log in to my laptop. And this is going to be protection also for RDP sessions in case if you need to protect them with a multi-factor authentication. Great. The last thing that I wanted to share with you here is a little bit more information about an example that I created out of time. And we have a subscriber here that I did the configuration when it comes to different resources so that you have an idea on how that is going to look like. So if I go to configure AuthPoint, I'm going to go under resources, and when it comes to all the resources that's related to the applications in the cloud and it's using SAML, the best resource for this information is AuthPoint Help. So if you go to AuthPoint Help, click on AuthPoint Integration Guide, and it will take you into all the integration guides with the details on step by step on how to do it. But mainly here is to establish this trust relationship between the identity provider and the service provider. So for example, here if I click on Salesforce, you'll notice these are the information that it's required on the AuthPoint side. Definitely there is some configuration is going to be done on Salesforce as well, such as the application type. So we have drop-down menu here with all the application that is supported, and we have the service provider entity ID, the assertion consumer service link, and the login is going to be using an email. And we have actually a certificate here that you can download so that you upload it into Salesforce side. And we have the AuthPoint certificate that can be used for this establishing the trust relationship. If I click here on Office 365 on the configuration side of AuthPoint, you'll notice that it is similar on the way that it's being handled. We also have the resource for SSL VPN. This one is to download or to have the configuration done for SSL VPN. So once that you create this resource, you notice here that for the Radius client, it's going to be the firewall, and you have to put the trust IP address of that firewall in here. And you have a shared secret and the way that if to use the Active Directory groups or not when it comes to the authentication of the first factor for these SSL VPN users. Great. Other things that we have in here, definitely once that you have an Active Directory, so the steps is you can add in here an Active Directory. I cannot add another one because I already have one for this subscriber. You can also add an LDAP or Azure Active Directory in the cloud. I just here wanted to show you how it's going to look like. And it's very standard when it comes to the information for adding the synchronization. So we have the Active Directory, the search base, the system account to log in. Here I put administrator, but you can use another account that it has access to the Active Directory. The domain name, some of the information here is already being set up for you, and then you're going to put the IP address. And once this is done, you can come here and you can do check connection to make sure that the connectivity is happening with the Active Directory. You can come here and do group sync, and in the group sync, it is pulling the information from the global catalog. So you can say, I want to have a specific group to be synchronized. I don't want all the groups to be synchronized from Active Directory. And once that you've done this Active Directory configuration, you can go to the gateway. The gateway, it has to be installed within your environment to synchronize with the cloud. And you can have the gateway and a backup of that gateway that is being installed in another machine just for high availability configuration. Tokens, it's for the hardware tokens. And as you can see in here, I have one that it is has been assigned to the user. I can unassign it from the user. I can block that token. I can delete that token in case that's not used anymore. Okay. The last thing that we have here is related to monitoring. So if I go to monitoring and I want to see the information, I have a summary of the user activity, the authentication. I can actually go here for the last month and see what happened, if there is any failed authentication, if there is any denied push notification. I can take a look at the user activity. Just in this environment, I have one user, so you will see that user all the time. Also, I can go under authentication, and I see the different type of authentication that it's happened using a logon app, or that it's been using SSL VPN, the resource activity as an overall, and all the denied push notification. If you want to send notifications that is related to AuthPoint, you can come here and you can go under rules. And as you can see that you have, you can add a rule with the name. The source is AuthPoint. Then you can add, like for example, if there is a denied push or LDAP sync finished, and then you have delivery method, and you can put the email address. For me, I already set some of these as an example. Great. So I hope that now you have a little bit of an idea on the components of AuthPoint, how they interact with each other. Definitely there is more testing from your side that need to be done so that you can grasp more details on how the components interact with each other.